Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the 1904 Club from the Hull Daily Mail. Sorry for the slight delayed, confused start there. Kathryn was asking me about the puppy that is milling around. So she's called Daisy, she might make an appearance because I'm home alone with her, and she's kind of ruling the world at the minute. Anyway, I'm joined today on today's episode by Burnsy and Kathryn. Kathryn, how are you?
Not too bad, Baz. Not too bad.
I'm really sorry, I got confused. I was kind of like stuck in time there. Like, I'd already pressed go live when you'd asked me the question. I was like, what do I do now? If I cancel it, I'm stuck. So I'm kind of just going to have this really awkward intro where I then answer about the dog, the Labrador puppy. Burnsy, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks, Baz. We've all been there. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
International break. How's it been so far, Kathryn?
Well, obviously, my international break's a bit different because, obviously, women's and men's seasons kind of obviously don't align. So, when everyone says it's like an international break, my international break's coming up in a couple of weeks. So, it's a bit different for me. But yeah, I always find it a bit difficult to watch the England men's team. I don't know if it's just because there's so much football to watch. I don't always find myself watching the games. So definitely pleased to have City coming back at the weekend.
Yeah, Burnsy, I guess yours wasn't great with what happened at Hampden Park the other evening.
Wasn't really paying attention. I don't watch a great deal of international football. I know as a Scotsman, maybe I should watch Scotland, but
Not even
yeah, I don't know. And the knives are out for the manager. I just missed the football. I've been enjoying watching City. I think they've been all right recently. Form's been decent, picking up points. But they're still in it. And you look at this game on Saturday, and you think it's another tasty game where they've got to get something from it. Whether it's must win or not, I don't know, but they've got to get something for it. I'm sure we'll discuss it.
Yeah, for those pining for the relative success of last season, look at Lee Carsey's under-21s on Monday night. Delap came off the bench to feed Philogene, who came off the bench to score a lovely goal at the Hawthorns as Carsey's England beat Portugal's under-21s by 4-2. Just a quick one on England before we go back into City, Kathryn. What have you made of Thomas Tuchel and his two first games? I think, in fairness, you could have put any one of us three in charge, and we'd have won those games, wouldn't we?
Well, probably. Yeah, I think it is good. As good as kind of the first two games could have gone. I think it's a bit too early to sort of see how different his England is going to be compared to, the England that we saw under Gareth Southgate. But I was interesting that he didn't kind of pull any punches after the first game and sort of called out the players that he thought weren't doing enough or weren't playing quite well enough. So. I thought that was interesting, and obviously, slightly changed team last night. But two positive results is always a good way to start. And as I guess bigger tests will come, but interesting to kind of see how his approach in his managerial way of being kind of so vocal in the media. That wasn't really a Gareth Southgate thing to do, to kind of come out and say, "Oh, these players, they weren't doing enough." So interested to see how that kind of plays out in the future.
But I guess with Tuchel, you probably won't really see the benefit of him until the latter stages of tournament, will you? Because he's been brought in to win the World Cup, and under Southgate, England got to finals, semi-finals all the time. The big problem was making that jump from getting into a semi-final and a final and winning something. So I guess that's when we'll really start to establish how effective this new guy can be.
Yeah, that's what he's there for, to bring the World Cup home and take it that extra edge. I mean, I've listened to a couple of interviews with him. I've not really watched the games. I saw the highlights of Friday. I've not watched the highlights of last night yet, though it was good to see somebody score a free kick.
It's beautiful, Reece James.
It's. I remember watching him against City. Me and Swanee doing the commentary when he was playing on loan at Wigan, and we both said at the time that lad will play for England. So it's good to know we had some judgment at some point. But no, Tuchel, I think appears decisive, know what he wants. He seems to have sorted out Harry Kane in that he's got him playing further forward, whereas he should be, not dropping so deep. And Bellingham's is number 10. Forget everybody else. Bellingham will be the number 10, and the rest of them will have to fit in somehow, probably from the bench. And I think that's decisive. And I think it needed that. There was an element of compromise before under Southgate, who did, when you look at it relative to other England managers, did superbly well, but just couldn't take it that final sort of leap to a trophy, because I think within a game sometimes he was a bit conservative. So we'll see what happens, but it's England always win these sort of matches. They tend to faff about a bit, and you think, oops. But in the end, they win them, and what matters is going to the States next year and picking up the trophy.
That's it. So on to Matthias Pressing, and it's been a relatively calm couple of weeks at City. Obviously, since the West Brom game, no game. Players were given some time off, and back at it this weekend. And Kathryn, what a game it is! And I know Burnsy raised the question at the top of the show: must win or not? I kind of feel like it probably is must win, isn't it? Given there's 8 games to go, Luton are 6 points behind him, and if City were to win, they go effectively 10 points clear of Luton with the goal difference. So big is that advantage. And with Derby not playing until next Wednesday against Preston, the very least is if with 3 points, City would go 6 points clear of Derby, which is psychologically important, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And those teams at the bottom the likes of Derby, they keep winning, and that gap, as we were kind of saying previously, it's not getting bigger between City and the bottom 3. It's staying kind of quite small, and these are the games at home against teams down the bottom that they've got to win. And as you say, I think if they beat Luton, they could almost, not mathematically, but it would kind of feel like that would be condemning Luton to relegation, and then you'd feel like them and Plymouth would take sort of a near miracle to maybe get themselves out of it, and then you'd just be looking at probably Derby as the team still in the bottom 3 as the one that could maybe get themselves out of it. So I think it'd be huge to win on Saturday, and I think the players know that as well. I think all of these games that they've had against the relegation, threatened teams at home, I think they've all been must win. Plymouth, Oxford, this one. Obviously, we don't know what position they'll be in by the time Derby, come here. But that one could quite possibly be a must win as well. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully they've got themselves clear by then. But I definitely think Saturday they've got to pick up 3 points.
Burnsy, I'm distracted again because now the puppy has chomped something off one of her chews and there's now a mess. I thought it was a dead bird at first. Thankfully it's not. Where are you at with it then? Because it is Luton. We've been saying for so long about Luton, but you kind of expect them to pull away, to find some form at some point, given that they won promotion the year before last. Obviously, they were in the Premier League last year, went down as one of the 3 worst teams in Premier League history. But they just haven't been able to kick on. Matt Bloomfield's replaced Rob Edwards. He's had 12 games, I think. He's won 2 of them, although he has won 2 of the last. They've won 2 in the last 6. So there has been some kind of, not necessarily improvement, but obviously winning away at Cardiff was massive for them, beating Portsmouth at home. They've only won 2 away all season. They've got one of the worst away records in the division. What of them? And you can't. I just don't know what to make of them. They've been awful, frankly, all season, and they're getting into that stage now where they're 4 points away from safety. If results feasibly went against them this weekend, including the defeat at City, they'd be 7 points adrift. With goal difference, this is a seismic weekend for them, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's a little sign. They've only one defeat in 4.
Yeah,
and they've
2 defeats.
They've picked up they've picked up a couple of wins in that 4. So I don't think he he didn't get a win in his first 9. And when Rob Edwards left, I think there were 2 points out the bottom 3. They were in a safety position, and it's not got better. But I think there's little signs that they've they've improved and he's got his methods into them, he'll have benefited as City benefit from, a weekend without a game, I think, so the manager can work on what he wants to work on and things like that. But yeah, I just think they're finding a little bit of form. But, City are banging form now. What is it? 1 defeat in 7? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. They've got Chong coming back, I think. I was reading today, who arguably the midfielder who started at Man United, and I think they paid about 4 million quid to Birmingham for him. He's been out for a couple of months, so he's likely to be involved in the squad this weekend, whether he starts for them or not. But they've lost Jacob Brown, the striker, with injury, so they're a bit up and down. On form, City should beat them, and City have won the last 2 at home. So I think that's important for the players' psyche, really. The fact that they've gone to those crucial games against Plymouth and against Oxford and come away with the 3 points. And the way they're playing at the moment, City don't, to me, look like a relegation side. Don't look threatened by relegation, even though the table would suggest they are. But again, it's a huge game. You're nervy, aren't you? I can tell.
I am. I've got this. I've just got a bad feeling, and I don't like having this bad feeling because that's not something that I tend to suffer with. But yeah, and I agree with what you say that they don't. I've not. They're in a really perilous position. Let's be honest. For all the positivity of recent months, really, the win at Sheffield United, the win at Sunderland. Yes, the Cardiff result was poor. 1 defeat in 7, unbeaten in 4. The performance at Bristol City, going there and going in front. There's nothing about Hull City at the minute that screams to me they're going to get relegated. Apart from the fact they're still only, for all that, they are still only 3 points clear of the bottom 3, albeit the goal difference is better. It's what, 3 or 4 better than Derby, but miles better than Luton and Plymouth and Stoke and whatever else. But I don't know. I've just got this nagging, and I've had it for a couple of days. This nagging kind of nervousness that that Saturday's going to go belly up. I don't know where it comes from. As I say, the 1 defeat in 7, that back-to-back wins at home should give them a huge amount of confidence. That Gustavo Puerta's back. Yes, João Pedro's, it's his final game out. Casey Palmer's been here. He's not gone away on international duties. Look great. I wonder if he might start. I don't know. There's just something about Saturday that frightens me. Kathryn, am I just being negative Neris, or not? Maybe not negative, but am I being overly concerned without reason, or have I got reason to be a bit? There's a bit of trepidation there, would you say?
Well, I think the way this season has gone sort of shows us that, City haven't been consistent all season. With 4 games without defeat, this probably feels like the most consistent they've been under Ruben Sayers. But you can't fully put your trust in them because they've not done enough to kind of convince us that they are going to go the rest of the season and definitely get themselves out of it, because every time you think they make progress, they have like a result like Cardiff away in them. And while they've gone through a period of games of not doing that, I can understand why you can't really trust them fully. And it's also just that nervousness around it being the 6-pointer kind of game. I feel like there's always going to be naturally a bit of nervousness and trepidation about it. It'd be the same if it was kind of like a promotion game. Sometimes you get to these parts of the season, and the nerves start to kind of kick in. But I'm hoping that now they've seemed to have sorted out the home form. Those 2 big wins against Plymouth and Oxford, I think psychologically, has really helped. And, the fact that, last 2 games they've come from behind and picked up results. I know the international break sort of halts that progress a little bit because you sort of trying to pick up where you left off. So that's my concern with it. But I'm hoping there's none of the I'm hoping they've got rid of all the stinker performances that we've seen previously, like the Cardiff game and, many others that we've seen this season.
Yeah, Burnsy, they do feel like they're going very much in the right direction. That they're playing some good football. They as Ruben says, they're competitive in every game. But we are now, for all intents and purposes, the international break is out of the way now. We've got 8 games in 6 weeks. They're going to come thick and fast, pretty much. You've got a break Saturday to Saturday this next week before from Luton to Sheffield Wednesday. But then you've got midweek games. You've got the Easter weekend coming up, and then once you've got the Easter weekend out of the way, before you know it, you've only got 2 games left. You've got Derby at home and Portsmouth away. So that 8 games, that 24 points is going to come and go very, very quickly, isn't it? And but Saturday is such a big opportunity, particularly with Derby not playing. There is that carrot there, knowing that you can go 6 points clear, and then that does shift depending on what obviously Stoke and Cardiff do. That does shift an element of pressure onto Derby. And I know you said last week that I'd agree with you that you would expect Derby to beat Preston, given that Preston are going to come off an FA Cup quarter final. But it is the Championship, and nothing's a given. And it does suddenly, if all the teams, if Cardiff win, if Stoke win, if City win, that does put pressure back onto Derby. And to then win a 4th game in a row is a big ask for Derby. That's something that it's not easy to do, and that can suddenly, points on the board is a big thing, isn't it?
Well, it is. It always has been. But all City can do is just do what they've got to do on Saturday. So play the way they've been playing. Try and not give the lead away, because that makes everybody nervous. And I don't want you quivering in the press box, Baz, because we'll feel the vibrations down the line. And just do what they've got to do. He's got, in terms of the team, Puerta back, for me, comes straight back in alongside Alzati. You were right on Palmer. We knew you were. Me and Kathryn on last week's 1904 Club knew you had a story brewing, and there'd be a story coming in the mail saying that Palmer was not going to go on international duty and was going to be staying to train. Does he come back in for you too? Does Palmer for Crooks is what's going around in my head at the moment. Does it happen?
Go on, Kathryn.
I think I said last time, if you're Casey Palmer and you're not in the team after not going away on international duty, I think you'd be pretty annoyed, especially kind of the 2 contributions he's made off the bench. So I think he will start. I think he deserves a start. My only thing is that if I then want to see like a performance from him that kind of lasts, if he plays the whole game, or like if he plays 60 minutes or something, like a really good 60 minutes from him, because I think sometimes when he started matches, he's not always looked as good as when he has come off the bench, to make that impact. So that's the kind of thing, I guess, Sayers has got to consider. Is it better to have a Casey Palmer on the bench and bring him on if you need a goal, or you need to change the game, because it has worked, twice now? But equally, I do think Casey Palmer deserves a start because of the impact he's had in the last 2 games. So it's a good headache for the manager to have. Obviously, naturally, if Palmer starts, what you want to happen is the team to be winning, and then you could maybe bring on a Matt Crooks to help see the game out, because I think that's probably what his job would be. I can't imagine Casey Palmer would play 90 minutes, given he's still kind of coming back to full fitness. So that would be my kind of thinking, but it's whether obviously the manager thinks he's ready.
I'm in agreement. Yeah. Burnsy, I think I agree with Kathryn. I think Casey comes in to start. He's got that guile. He's got that craft. He's on fire at the minute with his impact off the bench. My only slight reservation about bringing Casey in is he ready to do it for 60, 70 minutes? It's very different coming off the bench and having that immediate impact when defences are getting tired, both mentally and physically, and he's got that. He's got fresh legs. He's got a fresh mind. It's having that level of impact from the start. It is, and I guess we'll only find out. But I'm leaning very much towards him coming in for Crooks, giving Casey a start, try and get 60, 65 minutes out of him, and hopefully a similar impact to what we've seen off the bench. And then you've got somebody to come on. What my only worry is if it's 0-0. Or if City were a goal down going into the final 20 minutes and Palmer started, you then look at the bench going, well, who have we got on the bench that can come on and kind of turn a game in our favour like we saw at West Brom? Because you've obviously got Casey on. So, can Matt Crooks come off the bench with 20 minutes to go and impact it in that way? I'm not so sure. Mason Burstow is a player that can on his day, but we've seen that fleetingly. I still think there's a player in Mason, but that's probably a conversation for another day. But yeah, for me, I think the two changes are probably Gustavo coming back in for Regan and Casey. But the one question I've got, and I'd be interested to get you two's thoughts on it as well. Puerta had such good momentum in the team. He'd scored the goal against Oxford, which since we last recorded has now been credited to him. So that's his second City goal, his first in the league. Will he still have that momentum despite the fact he was forced to sit out the West Brom game?
Yeah, I think so. I can't see any reason not to put him back in the side, personally. Can I just say at this juncture, Kathryn, I admire your professionalism for continuing with your last answer. And for those of you who only listen to the 1904 Club, it's a blessing, because the rest of us saw the pink rear quarters of Baz as he went chasing the dog. When I say his pink rear quarters, he's wearing pink shorts, and he wobbled off to do something with the dog. And Kathryn just was professional and kept going.
Absolutely,
and I was inside. I was chuckling away.
You can see on the camera, but I could hear it. She's got two like massive bones down on the floor, which she's chomping away. She's broken one in half, and I could hear her gritting something in her mouth, and she was chewing a pebble. So I had to go and retrieve the pebble out of her mouth, because I just, that's going. She's going to choke on that. So maybe leaving the back door open so she can go out to the toilet was not the best idea. But yeah, fair play to Kathryn for being able to carry on as if nothing happened. And apologies if you saw the pink shorts.
And my apologies for taking us off down a side road. You were talking about two changes. I think there'll be three, personally. I'd think Puerta, Palmer, and I think Kamara's got to have a case for a start, having scored a goal.
Fair. Yeah, fair.
Would be, I'm guessing, I've no insight or anything like that, but looking at it in relative form and things like that, I'd be thinking maybe three changes. I wouldn't have any worries about Puerta coming straight back in. He's formed a nice partnership with Alzate. He'll be absolutely busting with frustration having been sent off, but also buoyed and buzzing from getting that first league goal. So I'd throw him in, and he's been playing really well up until his sending off. He's been playing really well. So I see a strong case for putting him back in.
Kathryn, obviously Burstow started the West Brom game. Kamara came off the bench, impacted it with a goal. Probably should have scored what may have been the winning goal. Would you bring Kamara back in for Burstow? And do you think Puerta can pick up where he left off?
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I probably would bring Kamara back in. Obviously, the manager kind of seems to rotate them in and out, as to who kind of starts. But I think at home, you want Kamara in the team, because I think maybe part of the reason he didn't start at West Brom is because we knew we weren't going to have much of the ball, and maybe a Mason Burstow would do a little bit more kind of defensive work. And you want a Kamara when you're in a situation of having more of the ball, and you're going to be kind of hopefully looking to get at the opposition a bit more. So I wouldn't be surprised if he came back in for Burstow. And Puerta, again, like he was playing so well before missing the West Brom game. I would imagine similar kind of vibe that we're probably more likely to have more of the ball against Luton. And as much as I like Regan, obviously he offers kind of different qualities to Puerta, but I think you want kind of Puerta's vision and skill on the ball and passing ability to try and break down Luton's defence, because I think they might come set up to defend and potentially hit on the break. And I think someone like Puerta is more likely to unlock a defence than Regan is potentially.
Burnsy, there's going to be a big crowd there on Saturday. It's not far off a sellout. The club have done a brilliant ticket offer, £15 for adults and prices underneath that for everybody else. Does that fill you with an element of dread, or is that something that should be embraced?
What you mean it'll be a nervous crowd?
Yes, quite.
Well, in the last game against Oxford, it finished with a decent atmosphere. It got a bit nervy at one point, but I think it was all right. I don't think there's any reason to fear a big crowd. I think it's good if you start well and play well, the crowd will get behind you. So you are a right nervous Nelly this week, aren't you? It's not like
I'm
you.
just, I'm a bit fretty today. I'm just a bit like, I don't know. I'm just fretty that's the best I can come up with. And I just, because it's so important. And, we've had 2 weeks to stew on looking to this game, and the connotations of it are so important. And if they lose, you're like, oh God, they're right back in the thick of it. And you can see if they win, like the impact that has going forward as well, particularly when you've got Hillsborough coming up and then you've got an away game at Watford. I just get nervy in these stages of the season. I was the same last year with the playoffs and the chances of getting into the playoffs, and even more so this year, because the last thing any of us want is going down. So look, I'm sure everything will be right. They've been playing well. They're confident. They've got a couple of home results. The crowd will be buoyant because they've won twice. Funny enough, I think, if I'm right in thinking, if they win by 3 or more goals, they come off the bottom of the home table. They would relegate Sheffield Wednesday to the bottom, and they would go above them it would be their 5th home win. And I think on goal difference, they would go above Sheffield Wednesday. So, I mean, that means nothing, does it? But given where we were a couple of weeks ago, to be talking about a 5th home win, there you go. I'm being optimistic.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah, just on the subject of Puerta, this clause, etc., etc. Will that be triggered this season? Is anybody saying anything? I know the fans will want to know.
Yeah, I've actually done something for Wednesday morning on it. It's getting close. It will, it could be achieved by the end of April. If he carries on playing, which he's going to. Let's be fair, he's probably going to, isn't he? Because he's playing really well and rightly so. So it leaves
to leave him out.
Well, that's the crux of it, isn't it? They can't, and because he's playing well and he's confident. He scored a goal. Hopefully, that goal will give him confidence. But yeah, basically, in the next few weeks, there's a fair chance that clause will be activated, and they're going to have to pay £3 million. I think the deal was agreed on something like just under €4 million. So based on current exchange rates, I think that's just about £3 million. So, but they would be obligated to pay. But ultimately, look, the club, it was Hull City that agreed that deal in the first instance with Leverkusen last summer. They agreed, that we will buy him if he reached a certain amount of appearances. Well, that certain amount of appearances is getting very close now. So, it's not like they're being held to ransom. They, whoever brokered that deal, whether it was Adjun, whether it was Tan Kesler when he was here, whether it was Jared Dubb, whoever had brokered that deal, they agreed that clause. They agreed that after X amount of performances, we will pay you £3 million to make it permanent. So, I don't think they can have too many complaints, and that is the deal they agreed. So similar to, the Ryan Giles deal, that they signed to get him on loan back in January last year. They did an obligation with Luton that will buy him for £4 million in the summer, and that's what they've had to do. So if you don't want to be put in awkward situations at random points in the season, don't agree obligations to buy that then give you a financial commitment. But in some respects, you could argue that to get these types of players, you have to sign those types of deals. And yeah, he's very, very close. But as I say, he's got to play, hasn't he? He's playing really well.
Yeah, and presumably, he looks an appreciating asset to me now. Whether he's worth €3 million or £3 million at the moment, I don't know. I was just trying to check on Transfer Market, see what his current value was. But he looks, Kathryn, to me like he's an appreciating asset. He's only a young player, but in his first season in English football in the Championship, he's coming onto his game, and you're thinking, aye, he's going to develop nicely. At least I am. I don't know about you. What do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think so, and I think he's become a little bit more consistent. I think at the start of the season it was, and maybe partly because of the way the team was and the team wasn't playing very well. He'd have moments where he looked like a really good player, like a really good midfield player, and I actually thought of the summer signings at first, I was like, this guy looks kind of like the real deal. Like you can tell he's got something about him. And then he had a bit of a dip, and maybe lost a bit of confidence, and naturally the team wasn't playing well. So I think he kind of struggled with that. And then we had the period where he wasn't playing under Ruben Sayers as well, and we were kind of thinking, what's the reason for that? And to be fair to him, I think since he's come back into the team, he's played really, really well. And some players could sulk when they're kind of not in the team, and he could take the bat and ball home and think, I'm only on loan here. I'll go back to Germany in the summer, and obviously, there might have been the obligation to buy, so it might not be his choice whether he goes back to Leverkusen in the summer. But he might have been thinking, I'm not going to be here in the summer. Well, actually, I think he's knuckled down, come back into the team, and he's made a real difference. And I like him. I think he offers something different than the other midfielders in the team. And as you say, like, he's a good age profile. He's not like he's a young player that I think will only get better. And if he can just refine kind of little bits about his game, I actually think next season, assuming he's still here, that he could be quite an important part of the team. Because I'm not 100% sure whether Stephen Alzate will be here next season because of the performances he's put in. I'd be surprised if there weren't clubs looking at him, and whether he might look to move on potentially if there's a Premier League team that comes in for him. So I think actually, if he was to leave, it would be really important to keep Puerta, because they're kind of, while they're different, they sort of play similar-ish roles. So you kind of want one of them, at least one of them, here next season.
It's a really interesting one about that. So again, Burnsy.
Well, I was just going to ask you, on following up to Kathryn's point, is the Premier League club sniffing round Alzate?
Yeah, you'd imagine so. I mean, he's really impressed, hasn't he? I mean, so there's been times this season where he's been a bit ponderous on the ball and a bit slow, but I think, and you think maybe that's perhaps why he's back in the Championship. But look, he's obviously a quality footballer, and he's having a really good season in a team that are struggling at the wrong end of the table. So I would be surprised if there wasn't genuine interest in him in the summer. And then City have got a decision to make. Do they cash in? But you'd imagine they'd get a bit of money for him. He came in on a free transfer. I know he's only got a year left on his deal, but come the summer. But he's a player he's still at a good age. He's got potential. So that's one for they'll have to consider. But it wouldn't surprise me if they got firm interest. In terms of Puerta, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think he's really come into his own. He's looked settled. I think he had a bit of a dodgy couple of weeks when he first came out of the team, and I don't think he was overly impressed with that, which I understand. But he's responded really well, and look, he's showing what a really good player he is. And I think going forward, his value is only going to increase, isn't it? Even if £3 million is a big outlay for City in the Championship, but he's got the ability to double that if he has a good season next season, and if he's playing regularly, if he can add goals to his, because he's clearly got so much talent, both in creating. We saw it with the goal against Plymouth, where João Pedro may have been offside, but that turn and the ability to carry the ball and then play the ball in through for João to run on and lay it on the plate for Abu Kamara, that type of vision to break the line is priceless. And I think if he can start adding goals to his game, which he should be doing, he's got that much quality that he should be hitting 8 to 10 goals a season in a team that are playing well. So his value is only going to increase. There's no doubt in my mind that in a year's time he could be a player that's worth 5 or 6 million. So there, overnight, City have pretty much doubled his value. So obviously he's got to stay fit. He's got to keep that form. But I do believe that there's a player there in a year's time, 2 years' time, that City can make money on. So it might cost them a bit now, and that might be uncomfortable given the fact they're in the Championship at the bottom end of it. But could you get a player in the summer better than Puerta for £3 million? Kathryn, do you think is that something that you think they could do?
That's Jared Dublin's job, I think. It's difficult, isn't it? You take that risk. I'm sure. I don't know what the situation is with Reading in terms of so I can't maintain the professionalism this time, especially because the dog's now on the screen.
There it is, and he had a mouthful of fence post. So look, stop eating fence. Right, go back and stop eating fence. Right. Anyway, sorry, Kathryn.
I've completely lost my train of thought now. As I say, I don't know what the situation is with Reading in terms of. I know there was talk in January that there was some sort of agreement potentially that we wouldn't go and try and steal some of their players after taking their manager off them. But I don't know if that was a thing, how long that would last for.
January. I'm not sure. On that subject, Reading are in all sorts of trouble, aren't they? So assuming that, bless them, they get to the summer, hopefully they do. But there's one or two players that might become of interest there, isn't there?
That's what I was kind of thinking. So obviously I don't know what position, and again, it feels a bit bad to be thinking about raiding a club, given the problems that they've got. And as you say, hopefully they manage to come through it. But I'd be surprised if there wasn't, some players from that squad that Ruben would be looking at and thinking that he would want to bring over. It just depends if there's someone in the position of Puerta, which he thinks is better and that they could get for less money. But I still think, this day and age, 3 million is not that much. It feels like a lot, but I think the way the kind of transfer world is going, for a player of that age, it's very difficult to, get someone for less unless they're out of contract, or unless you're in a situation with Reading where, maybe you can go and take players for kind of a cut price because of the situation that they're in. But I think, as I say again, I'd like Puerta to be here next season because I think there's a player there to develop.
Burnsy, on that subject of midfielders, go on.
I was just going to say, and when you look at him, he's taking the corners, he's taking the free kicks, he's taking the throw-ins. He's become a vital cog. And I just did a quick Google of what he was worth, and one site has between 3.8 million and 5.7 million euros at the moment. Now, there might be an element of guesswork in that. I take that, but I don't think if they have to pay the 3 million, they'll lose out on him financially, unless his form falls off a cliff, and none of us are expecting that. So that's all right. We'll see what happens. I mean, that's all in the future, but there is that thing of, given what you're saying, that they're going to have to buy him this season, and unless they're safe by the time that comes around, and then they've got a financial decision to make. Where are we going next, Baz? You were going to ask me something there, and I just rudely interrupted. By the way, your dog, I don't know whether he's suited for the 1904 club, because well, maybe he is, because he was biting the fence rather than sitting on it. So that's maybe he's perfect for the 1904 club. I just thought I'd work that in just to show I'm paying attention.
She's a character. Let's put it that way. I'm now covered in fence post. Zambrano, lots of questions about him, because obviously he had his appeal heard on the Thursday before the game at West Brom at CAS, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and it was said to me that his agent and his people were hopeful that they'd get a decision by the following Monday. Now, that hasn't happened, and as I understand it, with how these things work, we're all in the lap of the gods now, basically, that everybody is now waiting, Zambrano, his people, Hull City, for CAS to publish their findings, essentially. So there is no update. As a side, the update is there is no update, that we all have got to sit tight and wait for CAS to publish what they think. So as it stands, as we sit here now, his doping ban is 16 months. Obviously, that was published originally on November the 5th. So he's out until this, as it stands, until this time next year. the club were hoping that would get significantly reduced. Obviously, Ruben Sayers said to me after the game at West Brom that potentially he could be back before the end of the season, but there's absolutely zero indication from Cass, when this judgment's going to land. So it could be upheld that the South American Football Association basically their 16-month ban was correct and it stands, or it could be reduced to a year. It could be reduced to 6 months. It could be, he could have spent his. We just don't know. So it is a case of sit tight and wait. And if it gets reduced and he's back before the end of the season, fantastic. I mean, I would suggest that's grossly unlikely, but we just don't know, do we? So it's a case of sit tight, wait, and see what happens. But for the kid himself, it can't be great because he's probably like waiting to be hung, I should think, waiting for this judgment to land. So if it does get reduced, I still think City are interested in signing him permanently. I kind of feel that the fact he has been banned probably helps their cause, because obviously we know going back before they signed him, there was a lot of Premier League interest in him. He was likened to the next Moises Caicedo. We've not really seen too much of him at City, but that's a difficult scenario coming to a foreign country, doesn't speak the language, has got this hanging over him. He started to look better in the couple of games before his ban, in fairness, in a poor team as well. So, yeah, one to watch, I think. But at the minute, no news from there's no white smoke emanating from Cast Towers in Lausanne yet.
We'll wait and see.
Another matter of interest. I don't know if anybody's picked it up, but Tan Kesler has a new job. Chief Executive and Vice Chairman, and I hope I get this pronunciation correct, Pogoń Szczecin in Poland. I think they sit third or fourth in the top league out in Poland. So he's now heavily invested in that. So, good luck to Tan in his new role out in Poland. Kamil Grzycki is involved in that football club. Kathryn, fond memories of Kamil?
Yeah, one of those players that could be brilliant but frustrating at the same time. But it was definitely a character. Obviously, it was him and Jared Bowen on either wing. It was different times, and then we all kind of remember them both leaving in January and how the rest of that season went, unfortunately. But interesting on Tan. I know he'd been looking to get back into football for quite a while after leaving City, and obviously left in sort of strange-ish circumstances here, but interesting to kind of see how he gets on over there.
Yeah. Burnsy, one thing I wanted to ask you about was Joe Gelhardt. He got the club's player of the month for February. He's made a real impact, hasn't he, since arriving from Leeds United, and it feels like one of those moves that has worked out for both parties. He's playing every week, having not played at all. He's fitted into Ruben's system like a glove, and the fans absolutely worship him.
Yeah, he's been excellent. I think I saw some stats maybe a week ago or a fortnight ago about how he was having the biggest impact in terms of assists, goals, etc., etc. And he's been really good to watch. Is he better suited through the centre, do you think, rather than wide? Where would you two play him?
Yeah, Kathryn, I think so. Kathryn? What do you think?
Yeah, I think through the middle is probably his best position. I think you want him on the ball. I don't think he's been as quite effective when he's played out wide. But he looks really confident at the minute as well, and I think it was deserved, the Player of the Month award. Obviously, don't know kind of what will happen with him in the summer, but he'd be somebody again that it would be great to have him back here next season. I know they always say don't fall in love with a lone player, so especially potentially one that's come from Leeds, because you never know if he's going to come back or not. But I think he's been brilliant since he came in, and he looks like he's enjoying himself. He looks like he's really kind of having a good time here. He's had a couple of moments with the fans, and he looks confident. So I guess there's a chance that he might want to come back, and given kind of how well the loan move has gone.
Realistically, Burnsy, and it's hard to imagine Joe Gelhardt featuring much for Leeds in the Premier League if Leeds get promoted, given the fact he couldn't get near their Championship team. Really, I think he played 8 minutes for Leeds before he came to Hull City this season in the league. So I think there's an opportunity there. What the one caveat I would throw in, I think City would love him back next year, as I've said before. I get the feeling from speaking to Joe and the way he settled in that he's already got friends here, and he obviously knows Cody, Charlie Hughes and Carl Joseph as well. He's really settled. But what happens in the summer? Other clubs will have seen the other clubs will have seen his impact. How Ruben's been able to get something from him. He's loving his football again. Does that suddenly alert other clubs to go, actually, we can afford to pay £5 million or £6 million? Because Leeds are going to want a decent fee for him. He's under contract for another couple of years. He's still very, very young. He's got, I would say, he's got a decent ceiling ahead of him in terms of what he can achieve. So, City, my gut feeling is that City can't afford to buy him permanently, but other clubs potentially might look to do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's good. It's good for him. I mean, and if it is only a temporary love affair until the end of the season, and then finances elsewhere dictate that somebody else has got a better chance of getting in, then that's football. That's life. Just enjoy him while he's with City. He's making a contribution along with others. The team looks better than they did at the start of January. They look stronger. They're playing well, and he's been a big part of it. And I know we've talked a little bit about transfers, but to some extent it's difficult to get too far ahead of ourselves because going back to your nervousness, they're not guaranteed to be a championship club. Yeah, they need to get 3 wins still. Kathryn, three? What are you still going on 3?
I still think 3. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Luton, Swansea could be 2, and then depends where. Yeah, Watford away could be one that they could win. I think, given Watford probably aren't going to make the playoffs. And Baz talking about Sheffield Wednesday's home forms, giving me hope that maybe going to Hillsborough, we could maybe get something there potentially.
That is a potato field, though. You thought that City's pitch a few months ago was bad. Sheffield Wednesday's is horrific. And
I spent the last couple of weeks writing about bad pitches in women's football. I've had enough of bad pitches. Serena was talking about it earlier today as well. It's just Derby's pitch was bad for the League Cup final, the Women's League Cup final, and Real Madrid was even worse last week. So I'm sure Hillsborough can't be any worse than what I've seen in the last couple of weeks.
And on that, just very quickly on that subject, because that was a question I wanted to ask you both actually about points targets. But I've got to say, because I was a bit concerned, I saw you see the Challenge Cup fixtures come out, and you see FC versus KR. Right, put that on a Sunday. Don't put it on a Saturday when City are going to Hillsborough. Obviously, they put it on a Saturday when City are going to Hillsborough. So I was kind of curious to think, there'll be a lot of people from both sides of the divide in rugby league that potentially won't go to Hillsborough because of the derby. And then you see Wednesday churn out £36 ticket prices, which is absolute daylight robbery. And you're thinking, well, if ever there was going to be a low following going to Hillsborough, that would be it. But it looks like they've pretty much sold all the upper tier so far, and now the lower tier at the Leppings Lane is open. So full credit to the away supporters who won't be, apart from the MKM Stadium and Hillsborough, Hull will be a fairly quiet place on the 5th of April. But it is that Wednesday game is a huge one. But in terms of points target, like we've spoken about this before, Burns, haven't we? That Birmingham got 50 last year and went down. Plymouth stayed up with that victory over City on the final day with 51. You look back over the last 10, 12, 15 years, generally 50 points, 51 has been enough. It's been the odd season where you could stay up with 35, but generally it's going to be 50-51, isn't it? Well, 3 wins takes them to 50. They've got enough to get 3 wins in the final 8 games, haven't they?
Yeah, I think so. Well, given what we're seeing, I just come back to current form and the way they're playing and not looking like a relegation side. So they should have, but I've felt all along sort of 50 points was probably needed. And people were saying to me it'll be lower than that. It may well be lower than that, but it's not necessarily looking that way at the minute with Luton picking up a couple of wins, Derby picking up wins, it's putting a little bit of pressure on. So 3 wins and they should be safe. And they're perfectly capable of winning 3 games in 8. Now, you wouldn't have said that a few weeks ago necessarily, would you? A couple of months ago. You wouldn't, I don't think you'd have said that. But credit to the manager and the team for sort of getting it together. They ain't out of it yet, and that's why you're nervous about Saturday's game with Luton. But it's heading in the right direction, which is encouraging.
I think on that fitting note, it feels like a good time to end today's episode. Kathryn, thank you so much for joining us as always.
Thanks, Baz, and I hope Daisy stops chewing on the fences, sometime soon.
I've got a massive clean-up operation. Looking down at the carpet, it looks like shredded fence has taken place. So I'm going to go off and clean that and then make myself a brew. And Burnsy, thank you for popping by again. Always a pleasure. The masses love to hear what you've got to say.
It was all cliched nonsense, I think, today. But I'm just going to go and get some counselling, having seen you in pink shorts, Baz. I think that's, I need a bit of therapy. But thank you for the invite. I'll always try and help out if I can, because I miss doing it. So it's nice to see the pair of you, and hello to everybody that's watched and listened.
Thank you very much. And if you are heading off to the MKM Stadium on Saturday, have a good afternoon. We'll hopefully see what would be a massive home victory for Ruben and the players. We'll be with Ruben and said players on Thursday to preview the game against Luton, and we'll also be speaking to the Tigers Trust as well about their big game takeover at the weekend, and keep an eye out for them across social media because of the work they're doing and the fantastic stuff that they'll be doing around the game on Saturday. So that's it from us here at the 1904 Club. We'll be back after what we hope will be a tremendous win at the weekend for the Tigers. See you soon.